January to March of every year is the time of year track and field's fan base turn their attention to the indoor circuit. A format of the sport that started in the 1800s in England by the upper class, indoor running is of course a different challenge to outdoors and managed to create its own set of legends. Today we'll be focusing on a few of those, specifically as we look on the progression of the men's indoor 200-meter world record. IAAF, now known as World Athletics, started ratifying world records in 1987, meaning under their standards. The first world record was set in 1987. However, the first known world record was set in 1901 by Maxi Long, who ran 22.6 seconds while competing in New York City. Long, at 22 years old, coming off 400 meters gold at the Paris Olympics a year prior. This record stood on the book for 18 years. Athletics had no centralized record ratification at the time, especially with the manual timing system being used around those era, it became difficult. That said, during the manual timing era, the record was broken 10 times over the span of 83 years. In 1972, the electronic timing era began, but it was not until February 1, 1984 that the world record was lowered, and it was done so by German sprinter Ralf Luck, who in Stuttgart dashed to 20.67 seconds. Interesting enough, this location became a place where fast 200 meters times were run indoors, tying with New York for having 3 indoor world records. Luck would make it 4, as he once again showed up in Stuttgart to lower the world record to 20.57 seconds. Luck's record-breaking form indoors, unlike his previous counterparts who had record-breaking performances, came off the back of a strong 200 meters ability outdoors, as at the time he broke the world record, he was already the 5th fastest German ever in the 200 meters. His reign as the fastest ever indoors came to an end only 2 years later though, at Stefano Tilly, the guy who was seemingly the replacement for Pietro Menia, dropped it to 20.52 seconds. Stefan was an absolute beast in Italian sprinting at this point, winning multiple national championships, along with a world championship silver in the 4x1 relay and 60 meters European title. As good as he was, the record was not to be lowered by him again, but it would remain in Europe when Bruno-Marie Rose stormed to 20.36 seconds to win the 1987 European Indoor Championships, defending his home turf. His indoor 200 meters skill was well renowned because despite his subpar outdoor 200 meters skills, he was able to grab a silver medal at the World Indoors that same year. Such a time proved difficult to take down, with quite a number of high-profile sprinters failing to surpass the mark. None greater than Michael Johnson, who could only drop a time of 20.55 in 1991. It was not until 1995 that British sprint legend Linford Christie took down the mark on the same track, winning a French indoor meet in a time 20.25 seconds. This was another major step, because the record once again remained in Europe, which pointed to something, either the more advanced indoor tracks or the amount of indoor work done by these sprinters due to the winter conditions in these countries. This question had to be asked because we are looking at was a 19-year hold on the record by European territories, even with the growing popularity of indoor running inside the United States that began with the NC Double at Indoor Championships that started in 1965. That said, just a year later, Frankie Fredericks would put on what still is the greatest display of indoor 200 meters sprinting, as he stormed to 19.92 seconds in France, bringing the record outside of Europe for the first time since 1974, and gave Africa its own sprinting record. He was a high-profile athlete outdoors, gathering multiple Olympic medals, World Championship medals, and also going indoors to win a world title. That record is still standing, 27 years strong, and he still remains the only man to go under 20 seconds in the event. And with the increase in high-profile athletes competing indoors, you would think there would be a challenge by now. But that race was a once-in-a-lifetime. He was on the fastest indoor track in the world with strong competition at the absolute peak of his career.